Hey everybody, my name is Kalle Slaap, watchmaker from the Netherlands, and I want to show you this special piece. In the search for perfection, some strange choices were made during the centuries. For at least 200 years, nothing has changed in watchmaking. There's always a power source, a gear train, an escapement of some sort, and an oscillator. Always the same. But this is 1957 and a very special piece. I got it on loan. Frans, dankjewel. Echt heel attent dat we het mogen lenen. Hartstikke leuk. I got it on loan and it is different. It's the Hamilton Electric 1957. The quartz movement was still a wet dream for wristwatches. Even in the mid-30s they knew that the quartz oscillator was very close to perfection. This watch, well, the first time I saw it, I thought of its close cousin, the tuning fork from Bulova. And for design and case, they are closely related. It's not even 35 mil. But then, of course, the engine, what is happening? The search for perfection. And that means that a hand-wound watch isn't that accurate because there is not an even force on the gear train all day long. You wind the spring and there's a lot of force and it's pushing against the gear train, and during the day it becomes less and less and less. So it's not a constant force to the gear train, so not really that accurate. An automatic watch, mechanical, when you wear it, the mainspring is fully wound, so it's got a nice even force pushing against the mainspring. Far more accurate than a hand-wound watch. That is the real reason for automatic winding. Cheers everybody. But during the night time, when you're not wearing it, it becomes less. So there was a search for a constant force for the oscillator. Every single time the same amount of force, and well, they wanted innovation, and that is an electrical power source, and the oscillator is a balance wheel. And I'll show you under the microscope because I think it's fascinating. There are so many different solutions to the same problem. Well, there we go. Here, the Hamilton 500. And that's the camera, and you're watching with me through my microscope. Because it is so delicate. It is insane. You might even think it's the worst of both worlds. Because there is a power source, a battery, quite high drain for that period in time. So it doesn't last too long, and the oscillator is still a balance wheel with a balance spring, a shock system, normal Inca block, but there's a bit more. Here. Those two tiny springs, well, they're a conductor. And I'll stop the movement before you go seasick. There, so much easier to see. The real star of the show is inside here. There. There's the impulse jewel, just not a double roller, but closely related, because the balance wheel always needs a push, just like a swing with a child on it. If you push it, it will stop. So it needs an impulse, so every time a small bit of energy, so the balance wheel keeps rotating. Well, here it is, that huge coil underneath there. And the balance wheel is not just a balance wheel, it's got there another coil in it. So that coil is part of the balance wheel. Very hard to poise, and so the impulse is done via a magnetic field, a very temporary magnetic field. Why do I say it's the worst of both worlds? It is fascinating and really nice as a period piece, but far, far from the perfect movement. Do you see, to compensate the weight of that coil over there, this huge battery of, well, they are screws, but they represent weight. Just to counterbalance that huge coil. It is insane. And maybe you know, the real enemy of a balance wheel with a balance spring is a magnetic field, because if the two windings will stick together, the watch will run forward, will go forward. So first they had to invent a special alloy for the balance spring, because the normal blued carbon steel springs wouldn't work. You cannot work with a magnetic field even though it's temporary. It doesn't work. So the new alloy for the balance spring, and then these two tiny, well, spring and conductor there. So every time there is a circuit there, that piece behind the impulse jewel, supposedly gold because of the conducting qualities, because there's just a tiny moment that there is a connection, and that tiny moment the coil is activated and there is a tiny magnetic field, electromagnetic field, through the coil there, and that will attract the balance wheel. So it has to conduct not a huge amount of energy, but still, if it will corrode, well, there's no contact anymore. So every single time there's a contact, and then the balance wheel will be affected by the magnetic field, and you'll get the impulse. But still, you need a new battery, a few times a year at least, especially with the older batteries from the 50s. These energizers are so much better. Then you need some lubrication in the gear train, not too much, because especially in the gear train there is no winding mainspring pushing against the gear train. So the oil is very low viscose, but still, even in the shock system you do need some lubrication. So there is a bit of maintenance, and you need a different battery every once in a while. And if I'm being honest, if you have the eye for detail to make some kind of Geneva stripes, even though they are industrial, but still, this is purely decoration. Then you use just a piece of barbed wire for this spring and for conducting. It isn't that elegant, but that's just me. And here, I think this is part of the dial even. So, a strange intermediate piece of equipment, not used for long, but it is nice and quirky and something different. So the oscillator is a balance wheel with a coil, a huge counterbalance for the weight, battery powered, and there the tiny springs and electrical conductors. And the hand isn't moving that nice, but it is electric. And 1957, it was innovation and something new. The battery operated Hamilton 500. Frans, nogmaals dank voor het lenen. I hope you enjoyed this piece of very short history, but nice and quirky and something else. All of you, please hit the like button and hope to see you soon. See ya. Bye bye.